All right, good morning. Good to see you all. We are a group of researchers from Pacific Union College, and my name is Libna Arroyo. This is Sarah Hargrove and Iris Engelman from Psychology, Communications, and Nursing. We also have two that are not here from Business and Theology. So we decided to explore this topic as we are changing in our institution. We're actually going to become a university and different things. So the title of our presentation, Perceptions of Institutional Identity. So when we decided to do this topic, we looked at some of the things that small colleges or institutions can experience, and we looked at enrollment challenges, we looked at generational shifts in religious identity, theological diversity, and we also looked at evolving cultural norms. So some of the things we're noticing that are changing our identity and the way that we bring, education. So we were also finding that it's difficult to define institutional identity because it looks at mission statements and traditions, subcultural narratives. And so all those things together, we're trying to find a way to bring it together at our institution, and maybe it will help other institutions as well. So we looked at a qualitative focus group study that we're trying to develop and validate a survey instrument to measure perceptions of institutional identity within Adventist higher education. So we looked at some of the literature, and we found that there's a few things that have been working already when it comes to creating an institutional identity. We looked at mission alignment is very important, transparent communication, inclusivity, and faculty engagement. And those were the top 4 that we found in the literature. And so mission alignment helps with cohesion within the institution. And then communication actually helps to either build trust or not build trust, right? So how we portray that. And then also bringing balance of tradition and openness. And then faculty engagement is very important. One of the things that was highlighted, how we engage with our students. So we looked at 4 questions when we did our focus groups, and we looked at how do stakeholders perceive institutional identity at Pacific Union College. That's number 1. Number 2, what themes emerge regarding campus culture and institutional mission? Number 3, what tensions exist among stakeholder groups regarding identity? And our last one is, what constructs and themes should inform the development of a survey instrument? So we're in the process of that. So yeah, take it away with methods.
All right. So to build on that, I want to talk about the exact methodology of our program. And usually you don't spend a huge amount of time on this, but we found ours to be particularly interesting in how we navigated the methodology on our campus. So when we first discussed that we were kind of looking at this and trying to do an identity study, we found a lot of the research instruments are kind of impersonal. They're built to go across a lot of different institutions, and they're also designed to kind of look at it from a health standpoint, like the healthiness of the institution is already established. And so we were met with a lot of feedback from our faculty on our campus, from our own people, and we heard, we've already done this before. We've already looked at identity and nothing changed. Nothing happened from it. And so they didn't want to participate in it because of that. And so we kind of were met with resistance before we even started. And so as researchers, we didn't just dismiss that and say, well, we're just going to do it anyway because it's time to do it again or whatever. So we used it as a diagnostic mandate. So we realized if we repeated kind of traditional playbook, dropping kind of a cold off-the-shelf quantitative survey onto the campus, that we would just get the same kind of defensive or fatigued responses. So we chose to start with a qualitative focus group phase specifically to prove to our community that this time the process is built to listen and built to drive actual change. So we're using this exploratory infancy stage, hopefully to establish a little bit of trust, and before we even deploy a broader, specially designed research instrument for our particular institution. So kind of diving into our small campus hurdles, we're very small if you don't know PUC. So when conducting authentic qualitative research within a close-knit ecosystem like PUC, there's kind of distinct systemic hurdles that we had to kind of deal with. First, we're dealing with, like I said, survey fatigue. People are tired of continuous data collection, and then it loops into an administrative filing cabinet with zero visible operational follow-up. So they're kind of disillusioned with that. Second, we have what we call hats and hierarchies trap. So on a small campus, we wear multiple professional hats, and power dynamics are highly visible. So faculty and staff naturally hesitate to speak with absolute honesty if they feel it'll jeopardize their position or their working relationships. So if people feel unsafe, they'll self-censor, and that'll create like a massive data blind spot, right? So because of these hierarchies, we spent a significant amount of time being meticulously careful about our pools and drawing strict boundaries about who could be in the room with each other. It took a lot of time to kind of figure that out on such a small campus. So we determined kind of through extensive internal discussions that it's methodologically safe for chairs and faculty to be in the same room with each other because they're so intertwined kind of in their departments, but we drew the line at deans. So deans could not be in the same room. That's a different level of administrative authority, right? And so that was not going to be psychologically safe for the faculty group. So furthermore, when it came to deans and senior administration, we recognized that the pool is too small on a small campus. The hierarchies are too dense. And so the risk of exposure was too high to do focus groups with that. So we couldn't do a focus group with administration. So for them, we just allowed them to fill out the qualitative survey data and then did not do a focus group for them, which they're sad about. So the next major hurdle was deciding who should lead these rooms. So on a small campus, we had lengthy kind of discussions about facilitator selection because the researchers themselves are part of this campus ecosystem. So we didn't want that to be a factor within the rooms. So we had to select the right facilitators and then train them. They did come from our MA in Communication grad program that we just started, so that was useful. And that training culminated in using kind of an innovative approach, an asynchronous to synchronous focus group protocol, which is an adaptation of a modified nominal group technique. So we executed this in a specific way. We sent out the questions to them first, so asynchronously they could fill out the survey ahead of time, which had kind of long open-ended questions. So they could kind of type out their responses ahead of time. And then when they came to the focus group, we had the facilitators read out loud the answers to those questions so that it kind of flattened the idea of who answered what, you know, and because on such a small campus, you know what people kind of tend to say and how people tend to say things. And so when you say all those things out loud, it opened up the conversation. And so what we did is we read those questions out loud, and then the facilitator asked, okay, we're going to vote anonymously, and it has to be unanimous. But if you want to have an open discussion about this, we can do so. Or we can just read the answers out loud, and we can just kind of, you know, think about and process the answers to these different questions. And so the ultimate proof of concept for this design is what happened next. So our protocol, we did this, and we gave them that choice. And every single group, students, faculty, staff, they all voted to have an open discussion. And so that was really interesting to us that we went through all this design and they didn't even care, didn't even use it. But, you know, chicken or egg, like, would they have actually had that open discussion if we had not read those things out loud, right? And then they felt kind of more safe that they were going to be anonymous, we were going to protect their identity, and that it was going to be a safe space for them. So by designing that methodology with kind of strict sampling boundaries, intensive facilitator training, psychological safety, I think we got some really good data from that. And it's kind of this first step, we feel like, towards institutional healing, right? So the process of doing this was part of the process of healing, of being able to talk about it and going through that process and creating that safe environment. So this is like I said, infancy. We're in the process right now. We've had a couple of the focus groups and we have not had all of them. So Iris is going to talk about some of the emerging themes that we're starting to see.
Right. So one of the most talked about theme that came floating to the top really early on, was obvious to us, was this concept of community. And across all focus groups. They express that theme in various ways, such as close-knit community that encourages and supports its members. Within the theme of Adventist Christian identity, our campus, particularly in the nursing department, we have a large group of people who are not Adventist that come to PUC for their degree because of other factors. And so there was a lot of discussion about that aspect. But focus groups talked about meaningful worship services, faculty-led devotionals in class, and the faculty and staff supporting each other and students in prayer. Care and holistic education. It was interesting to see how this came up as well, that different participants expressed that they felt this campus, especially with the faculty and staff, were tending to the whole person of their students, right? So physical, mental, and spiritual, and to help them to be able to develop in all of those areas. The student focus group particularly talked about the small campus, and in a positive way, that it led to that feeling of community. It was more intimate. They liked the small class sizes. They liked the access to professors. And then place-based identity. This was discussed as an important part of PUC's identity, in that we are a small school on top of the hill, on top of the mountain, and with forest all around us. And somewhat separated from the busyness and hustle of the greater San Francisco Bay Area. And as you can imagine, these different themes did show some tensions. So within those tensions, we're talked about inclusivity a lot, both in a positive way, but then wondering if Adventist distinctiveness made some people not feel as included. The theme of community came through in a lot of ways, but sometimes it was reflected in a person's experience with their small subgroup, whether it was with their friend group or athletes kind of have a subgroup, and departmental subgroup, majors subgroups. Some spoke of the external perception that versus our internal experience. So the larger Adventist community may have a different perception of PUC than those of us who experience PUC on campus. And so those may be different. Some wondered whether or not our stated identity, so our tagline is live with purpose, rise in faith, serve with love. And then there's also this idea that PUC is an inclusive campus and is diverse. And some wondered if those things were, the lived experience was actually different than those things. Our data seems to be showing that PUC wants to say you belong, but people disagree about how that looks. Right? How does it look with as far as the non-Adventist students? How do they feel? Do they feel that they belong, or maybe because of our Adventist identity they don't belong? Others feel conservative traditional Adventists maybe are the ones who no longer feel they belong. And this is perhaps the deepest tension that so far we've noticed in our data. And we're looking forward to understanding these tensions and these themes in a greater way as we continue.
So So I can finish with saying this is just our institution, right? So wonder how this generalizes to other institutions, and it was voluntary. So, like you mentioned, the self-selection bias was present, but we hope that this encouraged you to also use it in any other institution in the United States. Thank you.